How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome to Fireside Yankees. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Daily content, and today we're talking about Albert Abreu, who the Yankees brought back after he was DFA'd with the Texas Rangers and Kansas City Royals. But Abreu is an interesting case because we traded him and Robbie Alstrom for Jose Trevino before the season began. Ben Rortvedt, who we acquired in the Minnesota Twins trade, has not been healthy, and the Yankees needed another catcher to kind of platoon with Kyle Higashioka, and to everyone's surprise, Jose Trevino has stolen that starting job and run with it, and it seems like they walked away with an incredible gem and showed a little bit of the Brian Cashman magic this past offseason. But now the Yankees have acquired Albert Abreu back, and they've changed his sequence. They've changed how he's throwing his pitches. They've changed the usage and what they're really relying on to maximize his value. Now, before, with the Kansas City Royals and the Texas Rangers, he was incorporating a couple of different pitches, including a changeup, four-seam fastball, sinker, and slider. But now, going through the Matt Blake school of sinker and slider pitching, he's really like taking away the changeup, not throwing it as much. He was throwing it at 11.1% before, but I'm excited to kind of dive into his metrics and take a look at what they're going to do with him to really maximize his value and extrapolate on his strengths and skill set here. I think this is a really talented pitcher who could be very, very beneficial to this bullpen, especially with some fatigue setting in. But before we dive into Albert Abreu, Ryan, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Again, Yankees come off another great win. We saw Breed last night, as you mentioned. He was a multi-pitch pitcher besides just sinker slider beforehand. Only used his sinker 30%, 34% of the time, so it wasn't really a primary pitch. He didn't use it an overwhelming amount of the time. But now he's using it way more with the Yankees. He's gone heavily into that sinker slider. If you look at the pitch usage, he used his sinker and slider over 90% of the time yesterday, compared to just 64.8% of the time in terms of combined usage on those two pitches. Didn't use his four-seam fastball except for just once, and that might have been a misread because sometimes with different fastballs, because they both have a lot of run, you may see that sometimes his sinkers register as a four-seamer. I don't think he intended to throw a four-seam fastball there. He was very much intended to throw a sinker. He threw a couple changeups to Stephen Vaught because he's a lefty, and they were fine changeups. Like, those were fine situations to throw a changeup, and they worked. So I have no quarrels with that. But I think for Abreu, I really do think that he can recognize, this is a guy whose pitch mix was way too complicated for him. He had too many pitches. He didn't really have mastery of any of them in terms of his ability to command them. And if you look at his sinker, right, it's not a pitch that necessarily has crazy movement, right? It's not getting a ton of drop, 12 inches of vertical movement in terms of, negative 15.5 inches of drop isn't crazy. But that's still enough for you to work with. And those 15.6 inches of run, you can see it on the screen, right? Like, there are some times where you really can't tell the movement of a pitch. You can see his sinker really running across that strike zone on the screen. And it's really a fascinating thing to see. His slider, while not a very, it's very much not visually appealing. It doesn't sweep the way Sevy's does or Holmes or Kings. But what his slider does is it's more like a cutting slider than it is a sweeping slider. And that creates a lot of deception because it drops in the zone and you see batters way out in front of it. Yesterday, he got a couple swings and misses and called strikes because batters really don't recognize the pitch well out of hand because he throws it like his sinker. And the movement doesn't have to be great there. It just has to be good enough where it deceives batters. And when you're consistently throwing strikes, good things happen. And Abreu throws gas. He doesn't need to, nibble or kind of be exact with his spots. He just needs to hit somewhere in the vicinity of the zone, and guys will chase or guys will swing and miss.
Right. I mean, look, his slider and sinker are by far his best pitches. I'm really happy to see Matt Blake. And I said this the other day, I was talking to Nick, and I was like, this changeup it's not a good pitch, right? Throwing at 11%, batters are hitting 286 off of it with a 1.143 slugging percentage. So they've been teeing off on the changeup. So Matt Blake said, you know what, man, let's not use that a lot. Let's cut that in half, if not drop that completely. And I think we're going to start to continue to see him not use that changeup as much and really rely on that sinker slider. Like you said, a lot of breaks, some good movement on it. It sweeps across the plate. And his slider is his best pitch, right? Batters are hitting 167 with a 222 slugging percentage against it. 8 strikeouts with that pitch specifically. He's only given up 3 hits. Over 18 at bats. So with his sinker, batters are hitting 190 with a 238 slugging percentage. And exit velocity, 87.4. They're not making insane contact with it. His slider's generating a 42.1% whiff rate and his sinker a 22% whiff rate. He's getting a lot of swings and misses on those pitches, and it's going to help him, right? He throws that thing so hard. He throwing the sinker at 98 miles an hour. That's like, I mean, you look at Clay Holmes and the velocity. Clay Holmes has the velocity and the insane movement that you simply just can't track. But, Albert Abreu has the velocity and a little bit of movement that does, spark a little bit of swing and miss ratio from batters. But I do think that there's a lot of value to untap when it comes to Albert Abreu. He's a young player. What is he, 26 years old, I believe? Yeah, 26 years old, 6'2". He's got a pretty intimidating frame, blazing velocity. I think that personally the Yankees would be foolish not to utilize him a little bit more, and they have been. On Monday against the Oakland Athletics, he came in and pitched he struck out 4 batters, pitched 2.1 innings. He looks really, really good, and Aaron Boone was excited about his performance, right? He said after the game specifically, whoa, I thought he was great. He was pounding the strike zone. You see what he's capable of when he's pounding the strike zone. He's efficient. His stuff was really good, and it's 7 big outs. So I think that his main issue was that a lot of his pitches just were dropping out of the strike zone, overutilizing that changeup, maybe just not utilizing his sinker enough and throwing strikes with it. And now, once you're starting to get the feel of the strike zone with those pitches, you can start to bait batters with them. We love those sinkers that drop low and away. Rather, that's where Clay Holmes has made his money this year, and towards the tail end of the 2021 season. So if Albert Abreu can try and replicate that, throw those strikes, and then get some movement on it, where it's dipping out of the strike zone every now and then, he's going to get a lot of swing and misses. He's going to be a very effective pitcher for this Yankee team. But what do you think his impact is down the road? How do you think the Yankees utilize him, maybe even after the All-Star break down the stretch? Is he a guy you're willing to rely on, or do you kind of need to see a little bit more from him?
Well, I think the big thing is I think you're going to see him primarily against right-handed hitting. I think that there's definitely going to be some righty specialists, not really righty specialists, but facing very right-handed lineups. You think of the Red Sox, a lot of their very good hitters are right-handed, right? Outside of Devers, you see J.D. Martinez, Xander Bogaerts, or Trevor Story, Kike Hernandez. These are all guys who have been, either last year or this year, big contributors for the Red Sox. And if you want to neutralize a team like that, you have to have a really strong right-handed reliever, and Abreu fits that role. I think the Yankees see him as someone that just the upside is there. Right. It's a matter of just consistently throwing strikes. It's a matter of trusting your stuff. It's a matter of knowing that batters really don't know how to square up his pitches and utilizing that to his advantage. He can miss in the zone. There are guys who can't miss in the zone, right? You think of Nestor, Litke, right? Those are guys who, when they miss in the zone, that's a problem, right? That's a really bad thing for them. They are going to get shelled. When Abreu misses in the zone, he can throw a fastball down the middle. They'll probably hit a ground ball, or they'll be behind on it, or they'll swing and miss. It's just how overpowering his stuff is.
Yeah, that's true. And with that type of velocity and these type of pitches, I think, the ones, especially the slider and sinker that are so lethal, they kind of needed this. They needed this little bit of spark in the bullpen, with Ryan Weber kind of like to hit free agency, not much of an impact player. Then he signed back because he realized he had nothing going for him elsewhere. But I think that they kind of needed this middle living guy. He could end up becoming like a setup man for Clay Holmes later on, right? He has that capability. Of course, Michael King can serve that role as well, but he can go a couple innings. He went 2 innings yesterday, got 7 big outs for this Yankee team to kind of help them, complete the comeback over the Athletics. But it's always nice to see Brian Cashman, finalizing a trade where he got a star, a legit star catcher for nothing, and then got one of the prospects he sent away in the trade back after being DFA'd. And now they're getting maximum value out of that pitcher by utilizing just a better sequence, a better strategy to attack his strengths and not kind of focus in on allowing him to showcase his weaknesses with that changeup, throwing those off-speed pitches, whereas the slider and sinker are just absolutely lethal so far. But I think that his slider is his best pitch so far. I really like seeing him kind of put together a couple of good innings here, and hopefully he can continue to make a big impact because the Yankees need it. They need to mitigate some fatigue. And if they're blowing guys out of the water, if they're blowing teams out, I think that you could ask Albert Abreu to come in and close a game or two. If they're winning 8-1, 8-2, even 8-3, you go and say, Albert, you know what? We want to give Clay Holmes a day off. Go in there and close this game for us. No problem. Gets the job done. And then you're happy, This is a guy who can serve multiple roles, especially in low leverage situations, which with this Yankee team, there's going to be plenty of them, especially against worse teams like the Oakland Athletics. I mean, today we got Frankie Montas on the mound. That's a tough one. Anthony Rizzo got plunked in the elbow yesterday. He seems to be doing okay. Gleyber Torres likely out for a couple days, maybe a couple weeks even. Just to recap, or rather to wrap up this episode, what are you expecting from this Yankees team today against Montas?
Well, I think the game plan against Montas is, he's a great pitcher. He's got his splitter, a bunch of ground balls, power fastball, he can blow by guys. He's got a good slider that has some sweep to it. He's going to strike out a lot of batters. He's going to be just a handful for the Yankees. Your goal is to keep the game close and knock him out early, right? Try to, you have JP Sears on the mound, and I love Sears, but, let's be real here. Montas is a better pitcher. A's have the better pitching matchup here. So if you're the Yankees, you look at this and you say, hey, we have the disadvantage in the starting pitching department, but we have a much better bullpen. Their bullpen's fully rested, ready to go, locked in. They got Holmes, King, Wandy. All three of them are ready to go if needed, and they can come in and give you 4 innings of this baseball game. If Sears gives you 5 of them, those guys can get you the other 4. King can give you 2. Wandy can get you 1. And Wandy has shown he can go multiple innings. Holmes could definitely get you an inning. Your goal is for Sears to get the ball to the bullpen, and for the Yankees not to let this game get away from them for Frankie Montas. All it takes is one big swing. I've said this in the Astros series, and it proved to be true. All it takes is one big swing, and suddenly you are in the driver's seat of that game, and you have an ace on the mound who now isn't as intimidating, or not as intimidating, but isn't in the driver's seat because now you put a ball in the seats and they didn't, right? Oakland and the Yankees, they don't, obviously the Yankees are so much better. That's not a question, but we know that the Yankees kill people's bullpens. Oakland doesn't have a great bullpen. They used a lot of their top guys yesterday and they struggled. A's are going to try to come into this, and they're really going to they are relying and they're depending, and they're going to live and die off of what Montas does today. So if you hit a 3-run home run today and Sears does a job and gives you 2 runs over 5, and you hand it to that bullpen, this game's as good as 1. So it's just get 1 in the seats. Just get 1 get that big hit, get it done. All it takes is 1.
Yeah, I mean, when you got Stanton, Judge, and some of these batters up, you can always expect that something good is going to happen, no matter who's on the mound. But JP Sears, interesting little pitcher here, 4-seam fastball, changeup, slider, really likes that fastball, about 94 miles an hour, lefty, I believe. So he's an intriguing guy, had a really great start, won 7 innings in his most recent appearance. I believe it was against the Orioles. So really, really good outing for him. Hopefully he can replicate that. They're bringing him in to really help against some of those lower level teams like the Orioles, like the Oakland Athletics, to try and just, give their starters some rest. They're like Monty we saw yesterday, Nestor. They're all having some pretty tough outings recently. It seems like the fatigue might be settling in a little bit. So giving them a day off and, just taking a break in the rotation will be nice. Of course, you got Domingo Herman coming back as well soon. Then maybe, you look at Luis Castillo, you look at some of these guys that Cashman's reportedly been intrigued by, and maybe he's thinking about something even more grand. But hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Take a look at Albert Abreu. Really interesting little relief pitcher here. He has some really nice velocity on his pitches, some nice sinker and slider movement, and he's looking good. He's looking like he can make an impact down the stretch. And that's exactly what you want from a guy who was just DFA'd by both teams and, going full circle, coming all the way back around to the Yankees. But if you enjoyed the episode, make sure to like and subscribe. As always, my friends, we'll catch you guys on the next episode.